I'm afraid.
All right, we see the delight of some of the heads of state there on the podium. We saw the flag of Niger and troops as well there from Senegal. Senegal, of course, who was tirailleurs, skirmishers, had a fierce reputation in the French army of old.
Yes.
It wasn't always easy, their life. The skirmishers, Tuesday we caught up with one veteran of the conflict in Indochina. He was captured by the Vietnamese 3 months before the French were defeated and surrendered at Dien Bien Phu. After his release, it was on to Algeria. Let's listen to what he had to say.
In an hour, our section of 24 soldiers was reduced to 8. All the others were dead. We were captured and then sent to prisoner camps. Despite the hardships of captivity, once rested, well, I was a soldier. I obeyed. I went to Algeria. I was in Grand Kabylia, 13th Regiment of Senegalese tirailleurs, in Tizi Ouzou and Fort National.
All right, and
for someone who was in that war.
Definitely, and he described how it was a tough life, and there we see what I believe are the Chadian forces, Laurent Inger.
Yeah, probably. I don't recognize their uniform. Yes,
And one of the smallest armies in Africa for such a country. Well, I would imagine the country at this parade with the smallest army is perhaps a Central African Republic.
Oh, yes.
A report out a couple of weeks ago said that currently they have more foreign troops on their territory than their own troops.
All right, correction there. That was of the Togolese closing the march, not the Chadians. And now we now see the French forces begin to march. And Laurent Inger, it all begins with the different military schools. And here we see from one of France's preeminent engineering schools, the École Polytechnique, the Polytechnical School, one of the most prestigious institutions. Why is the engineering school marching in the parade?
Because that engineering school was created during the French Revolution as a military school, which is still
Hence the hats.
Hence the hat, and as a military school, which it still is, and it was created in order to form officers of what was called in the 18th century the knowledgeable arms that were artillery and engineer. Sappers, cantonniers. And in those days, they had to be very good in math and physics.
Math, again, something of we talk about climbing the social ladder. Math, the reason the emphasis was on math in those training schools was that it was believed that that was something that could transcend all social classes and wouldn't put anyone at a disadvantage.
That's true, but it was also made in order to form good artillery officers. And in those days, artillery was one of the main specialties of the French army. The French have almost always been very good artillerymen.
All right, and now I believe, I guess you could call it the equivalent of West Point or Sandhurst, the cadets from the École de Saint-Cyr.
Oh, these, the one we see are not from Saint-Cyr, but they're the cadets of the Gendarmerie School.
All right.
The Saint-Cyr school must have been before.
Oh, they're just after. My bad, I skipped a page in my program. On my cheat notes, I have it, the Saint-Cyr right behind the Gendarmerie. The Gendarmerie, people always ask the question, what's the difference between the police and the gendarme?
The gendarme is a form of police that's also very specific to France and to other Latin countries. It's a form of police, but that belongs to the armed forces. They have a military status, which is completely impossible to understand to Anglo-Saxon people who are accustomed to Anglo-Saxon low juridical traditions.
But in Italy, there's something similar, isn't
there? Yes, the Carabinieri. Yes, and in Spain, the Guardia Civil.
All right, I believe these are our cadets.
These are the cadets of Saint-Cyr, the equivalent of West Point and Sandhurst in Britain.
we see the what they're calling the détachement épidote, what is that exactly?
It is a detachment of officers and NCOs that are stationed in Afghanistan in order to form and train Afghan officers of the Afghan National Army.
And that, of course, one of the keys to the NATO mission in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Philip Crowther, I can hear a lot of cheers for these regiments that are, in fact, we see now the, what are these? The Dragon paratroopers that are with the camouflage on their faces. We're hearing a lot of cheers for these units that are all, again, fighting in Afghanistan.
Yes, there have been some cheers from the view stand for certain regiments, as you just heard, for those that have been in battle in Afghanistan, but also for certain parts of the African troops who had a very short time in the limelight, really, very small regiments here on the Champs-Élysées. It only took them around 5 minutes or so to come past that presidential stand, but there was applause for them as well, most notably for the regiment from Benin, that one made up of women exclusively, Maybe that was a reason for the applause.
We now see the beginning of the mounted units, the cavalry.
The cavalry unit of the Paris Republican Guard, in their parade uniform, wearing their white trousers, which they wear only in the presence of the.
And this is their color guard with the trumpets.
Yes, no, it's not the colonel. It's this is the music, and it's the music leader. The colonel is behind them. And they wear their white trousers only in the presence of the French President of the Republic.
Let's take a listen here.
That popular music with the Day of the Jackal.
Again, the music that we can hear faintly there, reminiscent of the Napoleonic Wars.
Yes, absolutely. And I must say that the horse regiment of the Paris Republican Guard is the last unit in the French armed forces that still trains to do cavalry charges.
Again, these are gendarmes, Laurent and Inger, that we now see as they kick off the motorized portion of the parade.
The Alpine troops that you see here wearing a snow camouflage, white camouflage, are wearing a bigger beret than the beret usually in use in other units. It is the traditional beret of Alpine shepherds originally.
Okay, we're going to catch Cyril Vanier. Moments ago, he was in the crowd, and let's see just how wet he was.
Well, it's been raining on the parade here on the Champs-Élysées, and quite literally, 30 minutes of continuous rain has everyone drenched here on the Champs-Élysées, every soldier and every spectator. You can see the spectators just on the other side of the avenue here, many of whom have been here for hours waiting to see, well, precisely this. You see the armored vehicles of the French army currently parading down the Champs-Élysées, and it seems that everyone who's come here has their own favorite bits of the parade. It seems that the Air Force was a main draw, fighter jets screaming above our heads. Many people came here specifically for that. There are also some of the elite combat units within the French army, the Foreign Legion, that drew a lot of applause and got a lot of attention. And now, as you can see, the armored vehicles, which are still driving past behind me here on the Champs-Élysées, are also getting a lot of attention.
And no points for guessing what that is.
The Fire Brigade. The Paris Fire Brigade, which is, as I previously said, a military unit.
All right. A moment ago, there was also the French UN peacekeepers that are based in Lebanon.
Yes.
Armin Georgian, we were talking about a change of priorities for the French army, less in sub-Saharan Africa and more of an accent on the Middle East.